report, and as well as 292, and also Bill 880 in just commenting.
Thank you. Good morning.
Margaret Wille, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to say that I've supported the overall objective of promoting ag tourism in the county. At the same time, I am concerned. I know not just Jim Kane, but a number of folks around the area have spoken of the issues of Waipio. I think on a broader level, the key thing is we have to provide adequate, safe access. And we don't want just to overburden the agricultural efforts in our district, in our county. The road to Waipio has been, the residents there have complained many times that it was improperly and inadequately maintained, and that it's unsafe. It's a lot of problems, and certainly in that niche we need to address that. And I'm glad to hear that you, Chair Ugong, are proposing some amendments. I think that this same issue does occur in other locations, and that there should be a provision and a safeguard to ensure that there's adequate, safe access for the level of use. I too have been concerned about the numbers that are allowed. I'm glad to see that there's an amendment to move it to on a daily basis. The key thing that I would like to ask is that whether it's a market stand or a large-scale operation, that there's self-monitoring, that we have everyone who engages in this program, that we have a report form, and that those are submitted and include all of the different issues so that we're able to see where problems are arising. I think this is very important in terms of our learning how this works. What is the impact of overlaying pretty large-scale tourism on our ag community? I think we've all said agriculture is our top priority in terms of sustainability and resilience on this island. So let's keep that in mind. It is also very helpful for an operation to do self-monitoring and be reminded of what the objectives are. And in this way, we can determine where we need to make corrections and what's going right and wrong. Again, I'm very glad to hear that there will be some amendment for Waipio, and I expect there are other areas where this same access issue will arise. I'm now moving over to the geothermal drilling. I testified on this before in support of the limiting drilling between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. And I think the general response from the industry is that we're illegally allowed to do this. And I think we have to move beyond that. You know, we have our legal rights. I mean, we live on this island together, and if they want to, the whole geothermal industry wants to be supported as we want to support it, they need to work with the people, with the impacted community. And therefore, I just would ask them, meet with the community and act like a good neighbor. This is about being a good neighbor, and it shouldn't be that the county is trying to force it. So I don't want to hear any more. We have our legal rights, we have our legal contract, because they're not going to get far if that's the attitude of just hiding behind legalese, regardless of whether it's in their best interest long term in terms of being a good neighbor. Okay, and that's I think that's all I'll comment on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Let's go over to Pahoa. Go ahead, Barbara, your first testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First testifier is Jon Olsen. He's speaking in support of Bills 292, 297, 298, 299, 300, 301, 302, and 303.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Appreciate your time. Starting with the geothermal noise. Of course, I live directly across from the plant, and I can speak with some authority about the noise impacts. It has been consistently unpleasant, to say the least. Always been a believer in the idea that good fences make good neighbors, that I don't have any right to impact the people around me beyond what is reasonable. I think this law will certainly help address at least some part of their impacts to the surrounding community. I understand that there's probably going to be an upcoming rash of exploratory drilling around the Puna district simply because there is going to be federal dollars available to do it. There may or may not be resource, but the drilling will go on simply because there is money to do it with. I'll leave that. I will take 297 through 303 as a, if I may, putting on my Puna traffic safety hat.
Very good.
It deals with everything from impaired driving, driving under the influence, teen drinking while driving. Every year when these federal dollars become available, I come in and testify in the positive about this issue. But we need to have something more substantial going on a day-to-day basis. With the increase in population, you know, our traffic numbers, our fatalities and serious injuries continue to rise. We are setting a record pace this year for deaths on the road. We're not getting a whole lot of help from the state in terms of its willingness to deal with speed limit issues. The most recent crash on Highway 11. The speed that was allowable in that area was not an acceptable level. It is in fact a major intersection there. Two subdivisions, one on each side of the highway, enter there within 300 feet of the store where the crash actually occurred. There's a public park across the street. Yet there's still a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So it's falling on the county to have to do the enforcement part. So I'm glad to see this money, you know, coming to the county and these actions being taken. But we have to look in ways to fund this on an ongoing basis. It isn't going to get any better. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Barbara, your next testifier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is Geoffrey Last, and he's speaking in support of Resolution 302-12 and Bill 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Aloha. Here we are again. I wanted to speak a second about sustainability. The world is changing dramatically. The price of everything is going up. It's costing more and more to do anything. Housing, you know, has been regulated now, and we have these building codes that makes building a house extremely expensive. Let's say a young couple wants to buy a $300,000 home. And they don't, you know, there's no jobs out here that are going to make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. It doesn't happen out here. So what we have is a situation where people are becoming economic slaves to live in houses that they really don't need. Now, if we have a smaller homes to live in little houses to live in, I think there's a good possibility people are going to have to learn to live together, and they can live better, just because they don't choose to go the normal way. Let's say normal, whatever normal is. Like my daughter and her boyfriend live in a 20 by 20 screened-in house, and they're very comfortable. They have a composting toilet, they have rainwater catchment, and they're very comfortable where they live. It's their lifestyle, and they both work too. And they both have jobs. They don't make a lot of money, but they work, and they enjoy their life. So I support sustainability. I think small housing is very important. And I'd like to go on now to the noise ordinance on the PGV. and I've written a little something here. PGV and other companies say that they have to be able to drill 24/7. They give lots of reasons, mostly is in the permit, and the county has no regulatory rights. In the 80s and 90s, they also said that they had to dump their waste on the ground and open vent into our neighborhood. The technology is there, but it was going to cost them money. The health department, who was supposed to protect us, protected them. It was in the permit. We sued, we won. Everyone here knows that the geothermal in Puna is in the wrong place, a residential community. You and I both know they say they have to drill 24/7 is because it will cost them money, period, exclamation point. Once again, the permit is written for them, not the community. I have lived in Puna for 28 years. I was a flower grower, shipper for 17 years. We're all brothers and sisters. We are in this play of life together. We are not expendable. We are not collateral damage. So I ask you, do you back big business for profit, or do you protect the people, your people, from the wanton greed of outsiders? I suggest you go home and ask your wives, sons, daughters, and maybe your priests or monks or reverends what path to follow. Ask them if they would like a manufacturing plant put in their backyard. Women usually have more compassion than the men. Maybe they are born with it. Men seem to need to learn it. Tell them the whole story, how we need new energy, but there appears to be problems with geothermal. How 40% of the electricity in the state is used for hot water. How that could be easily solved by mandated bonds. How another 20% could be saved through proper lighting and education conservation. How geothermal in Puna is a huge geologic risk. How solar technology is advancing rapidly. How many grids could take over for the big old dying technology. See what they say when they have all the information, and I mean all. Forget the phone calls from Senator Inouye, Neil Abercrombie, and the best mayor money can buy. Tell the good old boy system, the system that is destroying this beautiful INA, that you are developing compassion and a conscience, and you are starting to practice these human values with supporting this straightforward noise bill. Aloha from the spirit in me to the spirit in you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's move on to Hilo. Nora, your first testifier, please.
Our first testifier is Cory Harden, who will be commenting on Bill 266, Draft 3, and Communication 745.19.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Patricia Spinoza, and then we'll get
We're getting some feedback from Pahoa. Anyway, Cory Harden speaking for myself. I am first going to criticize the 4 council members in Hilo, because during the entire testimony from the previous testifier, these 4 council members unfortunately were talking among themselves, and I'm not sure if they heard the testimony. So, sorry folks, but that's what was happening. Okay, comments on Communication 745.19 about ag tourism. I would like to thank Brenda Ford for effectively addressing many of the concerns raised by the public. I do support what Jim McCain was saying, protection for some very special places. I mean, they're all special, but some need special protection. And I sent you folks a list of concerns. I'd like to highlight some of them, some remaining concerns. One is, what happens if a proposal is not reviewed within the deadline? Is some lawyer going to come and say it wasn't reviewed, we need automatic approval? And let's see, permit applications should include adequate access for emergency vehicles, plans to repair wear and tear on roads, signs that designate the ag tourism sites. You don't have folks driving around the neighborhood asking where is this place. Plans to control dust, ways to prevent trespassing and theft on neighbors' property, adequate smoke detectors and exits in building guests will use, confinement for animals, clear designation of areas off limits to visitors, adequate restrooms and sewer, adequate insurance, and compatibility with the character of the neighborhood. And for regulations, I think the operator of the tourism business should be the owner, operator, or occupant of the farm, not someone off island or something. Notice of a proposed ag tourism project to the neighbors, letters, signs, ways for neighbors to raise concern and contest proposed projects. and count as ag tourism revenue from selling items that include ag products grown or processed by the ag activity or the ag processing facility. There should be simple noise limits, like if you can hear it from a certain distance, it's too loud, like they have for boom boxes in cars. There should be required annual evidence that ag income is greater than ag tourism income. So it's really an ag operation, not mostly tourism. Let's see, and fees to fund enforcement. So thank you for your work on this. I hope we can find a way to do ag tourism right. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Nora, your next testifier, Hilo, please.
Our next testifier is Dwight Vincente, who will be commenting on Resolution 302-12 and Resolution 310-12.
Thank you. Good morning.
And also 305-12.
Okay, very good.
My name is Dwight Vincente. I'm representing the Hawaiian Kingdom. 302-12. As with landowners, there is no land ownership here, because to have the Mahele had created land title. Land ownership is through contract between the kingdom and a private party. So the word landowner needs to be replaced, because you need a contract under the Mahele. And there's no law changing that status of lands here in Hawaii. 305-12. Drugs here in Hawaii was legalized on the morning of January 13, 1893 with the sign of the opium bill into law. This was for the Chinese contract slaves that were hooked on opium. The drug smugglers was the United States and the British. So the Queen found no other means but to legalize it, to keep the contract slaves at work rather than in jail. And there's a separation of Kingdom and United States. The United States has no authority to enforce their drug laws onto its kingdom. It's for the kingdom to decide that. And the police under the U.S. Constitution is illegal, but not under the Hawaiian Kingdom. 310-12. Gun control was imposed on this kingdom after January 17, 1893. Arms to be licensed penal code. It was imposed as a means to keep the kingdom from existing. That's the only purpose. It remained there until 1959, where it was transferred under Title 10, Chapter 1, 34. Permit to acquire. You need to go see the chief of police, who is not authorized to be in uniform and carry a gun under the U.S. Constitution. So it's kind of strange to see gun control and its effect. It's a political oppression. It was used against the Queen. She was the first being prosecuted by the United States Navy, who had no jurisdiction to be here under the Reciprocity Treaty and the 1887 Constitution, which was forced upon this kingdom. With this being said, I will reserve the rights of this kingdom under the Queen's protest of January 17, 1893 against U.S. Minister Stevens, original but limited jurisdiction. And the other one is the Monroe Doctrine. Northwest Ordinance of 1787 has no force and effect of law. The venue to question that ordinance and its unlawful effects is Washington, D.C., U.S. District Court. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's move here to Kona. Our first testifier will be Janice Paul McLinney, who will speak on Bill 266. Hello, good morning.
Hey, Chairman McGowan.
Oh, there
This
you
is
go.
Lonnie from
Can you hear
Weigart.
me now?
Okay, you good? Go ahead.
Chair McGowan.
Yes.
Oh, did you skip it? Are we? I have two testifiers.
No. We're going around and around. We're going to go to Waimea next. Was that Manu in Waimea? Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we're doing two at a time, my dear.
Okay, thank
so
you.
let's come here to Kona. Janice Paul McLinney on Bill 266. Aloha.
Aloha, good morning, council people. Several of my major concerns regarding Bill 266 linger, and I agree with comments made earlier and appreciate Ms. Ford's work on trying to make a fair, workable bill. Some of my concerns include rules concerning the income from ag products versus value-added products, as well as the space used for actually growing products versus selling value-added products or activities have been stricken from the rules, and a significant portion of profits on ag land should be required to come from actual ag activity. Noise considerations remain glaringly omitted in this and other county law, yet excessive noise is one of the most trying issues for neighbors to endure and deal with effectively. When I've complained about construction noise or garden party band noise, the police told me there are no noise restrictions on ag land. Whatever the real rules are, they need to be clearly written into this law so they can be referred to by all parties. Also in this section, 25.415, what does recreation mean? Dirt bikes, ATVs, and other off-road motorized vehicles are used on farms, but these vehicles must be specifically excluded from ag tourism permits to avoid intrusive noise. Section 2, the number of visitors must be written as visitors per day, as has been repeatedly requested, and I think will be in the new draft. But even 350 visitors per week is too high in otherwise quiet rural areas, including its impact on public and shared roadways. Rural ambiance is part of why many people choose to work the land and live an agricultural lifestyle. I'm wondering if it's even possible that some of these rules could constitute legal takings of property owners' rights when restrictions that make ag land unique from commercial or tourism zone lands are lessened. Please change this wording in the final draft, including wording that limits ag tourism to a maximum of 5 days per week. Section 25.415, Section 6, 25.415 gives hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, noise restrictions need to be clearly and fairly written. 10 hours is a long day of noise. Loudspeakers, quads, live music concerts, amusement ride noise, and other sounds that were never part of the area would be legal under this law. Section 6, again, unpermitted, formally illegal ag tourism activity should not be allowed to continue at all, no less for up to 6 months while there's a determination of violation, if I'm reading that correctly. This makes a mockery of the efforts of law-abiding residents and could mean loud noise and traffic continue as it did in my neighborhood until late at night, almost midnight. Section J of 25.415 is also very weak. Only frequent surprise visits to ag tourism venues will ensure that visitor count is correctly and honestly recorded. Finally, only some farmers will choose to take agriculture to the tourism level, yet many others will be affected by that choice. This council needs to protect all residents, yet the county has been so lax in uniformly enforcing its land use rules. What are the penalties for not following these rules, and who will decide if they're enforced? My huge concern is that already overburdened planning department employees won't be, that they shouldn't be charged with the impossible task of uniformly, adequately, and fairly enforcing new land use rules. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Our final testifier here in Kona is Marcy Montgomery to speak on Resolution 302-12. Good morning. Is that microphone on?
Good morning. My name is Marcy Montgomery. I'm the founder and director of the One Highland Sustainable Living Center. Clearly, we have an interest in sustainability in our organization. We're a 501c3. We do a variety of education programs, and I'm here to encourage the county to not only embrace the 302 issue, but also to look broader at the sustainable living research, that whole process, as a green economy driver. If you would look at the paperwork that I provided, the page that begins with Aloha has a list on the left that is the first time in a while I've put together the list of all the different federal funds that my organization has been able to attract to do sustainable living education programs. And that comes out to over $2 million over the last 8 years. So I think we're a good example of how the problem-solving process that's just inherent in sustainable living issues is of benefit not only to the organizations who might be applying for this change in zoning, but also to our broader community. We're able to do reclaiming our local food system program under this type of funding. We've also been able to bring 150 families about $5,000 each in solar funding from the USDA. We're doing a reclaiming a local food system project that is funding community gardens, household gardens, as well as the No Fruit Left Behind, which is an innovative gleaning project. But I did want to emphasize this morning that we're not operating in a vacuum here in Hawaii. I have an opportunity to travel onto the mainland and learn from sister organizations. So in my paperwork, I also provided you with a link as well as information about the Lopez Community Land Trust, who is a sister program to us and doing incredible work in the affordable housing, net zero type of energy, sustainable agriculture. It's an incredible model that we've learned from and that I think is a good example of why this type of program can be looked at not as unique to Hawaii, but as part of a movement that's going on nationwide. And then the last piece of information I provided is an impressive listing I found from the Intentional Communities website that shows statewide how many different types of communities are trying to address the pressing challenges that we all face, but doing it as an intentional community effort. And there are groups here on the Big Island that are on this list, as well as others in other parts of the state who are doing pretty remarkable work. So I wanted to thank the county for getting us this far along in this conversation. And my organization is currently operating on a 10-acre organic farm, and we are non-residential because of these zoning restrictions. We use our education center, our greenhouse, our orchards as an educational laboratory. But the opportunity for our organization or other organizations to actually develop a residential component would be wonderful. We ask your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Okay, we have, looks like 8 more testifiers to go. Let's go back to Waimea. Lonnie, your first testifier, please.
Thank you, Chair Yagal. My next testifier here this morning is Lonnie Weigart, and she's representing Hawaii Agritourism Association, speaking on Bill 266 in support.
Thank you. Good morning.
Aloha Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Lonnie Weigart, and I am the Executive Director of the Hawaii Agritourism Association, which is a statewide 501c3 nonprofit. And our purpose is largely rooted in agricultural education as well as economic development. I am in support of Ag Tourism Bill 266. Back in 2007, the early drafts of this Ag Tourism Bill had its first reading and ended up being very hard to understand, cumbersome, and extremely difficult to enforce and comply with. The amendments that have come forth and have been included in Bill 66 to this day is actually a huge improvement, and I do appreciate all the previous testifiers indicating their concerns, etc. But this bill was worked on for hours with many, many farmers, ranchers, and I believe a lot of the, or several of the council members actually participated in a lot of those meetings. Although this bill is broad, it actually has a really focused intent, and so I know it's really difficult to please everyone, and there are some special considerations that have been asked so far this morning with testifiers, and I appreciate that. But I'd like to pose the thought that it would be great for us to have something with regard to the ag tourism ordinance, because it's difficult for farmers to be in compliance when we have no structure and we keep going over these small and large concerns that make it difficult for us to finally get a bill over the line. So I'm really in strong support of it. Ag tourism has proven to be a strong economic multiplier for any community with regard to lodgings, bed and breakfast, rental cars, gas stations, mom and pop corner markets, small local crafters. Everybody benefits from it. And again, ag tourism, although it has the word tourism in it, it can clearly be anchored in agriculture, and it's made particularly to supplement the farmer. So please do not require minor farms to go through plan approval, because the reality of it is they don't have the wherewithal or the resources to go through plan approval, and the little guys need to try to get out at some point to start making some supplemental income. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha, thank you for your testimony. Molly, your next testifier, please, in Waimea.
Thank you, Chair. My next testifier here this morning is Benson Medina. He also is representing Hawaii Agritourism Association, speaking also on Bill 266 and support.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everybody in Hilo. I hope, you guys aren't in Hilo. So I was going to ask how the weather is over there, but it's probably raining. Anyway, just wanted to speak a little bit about Bill 266. Now, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but there are dozens and dozens of farms on this island, Maui County, Oahu County, and Kauai County that are already out doing ag tourism. Now, the problem with that is that there is no structure anywhere for ag tourism. And so the people that are coming to testify that have complaints about ag tourism, about noise, dust, parking, I mean, I support all of these guys and the complaints they're having, because there's no structure out anywhere in the state that provides laws, regulations, ordinances, whatever. Bill 266 will be the first one to get on the books anywhere if it's signed into law, if you guys will finally approve it. I got to tell you that we're working with counties, with Kauai County, Maui County, Oahu County. They're waiting to see what the Big Island does, because they perceive the Big Island as the leader in agriculture. So that was Lonnie, who just testified. For 5 years now, we've been working on trying to get this bill through this venue, through Hawaii County, because we believe that Hawaii County sits at the foremost precipice of what agriculture and tourism can do together. If this bill, in its present form, and I agree that it needs to have some amendments, but if there's some structure, if we can get this bill into law now, then we can start going over it, we can start improving it. It'll give us a structure to work with now, because right now there isn't any. So people can do whatever they want out there, and there's really dozens of farms that are already out there doing ag, what they're calling ag tourism. And it's a very, very loose definition of that. I believe also that our organization, Hawaii Ag Tourism Association, which has dozens of members, can assist in actually policing it, because we understand that this county and every other county in our state doesn't have the resources or the manpower to go out and police all of these rules and regulations. But our organization can take the forefront in terms of developing education, going out, talking to the farmers, talking to the ranchers, saying, hey, this is the law, this is what can be done, this is what cannot be done. And it's going to take an organization that has significant size to help regulate it. And when people are saying, oh, they believe some of these things should be self-regulating, well, nobody's going to self-regulate themselves. But if they're, well, some people are, but most people are not. So at any rate, I believe that we're sitting right now at a point where we can really make something of ag tourism. People keep talking about it, but nobody's actually doing anything. So here's our opportunity, and I believe that now's the time to do something, finally do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your testimony. Mano, I believe that's your last testifier in Waimea, is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, very good. Let's move over to Pahoa. Go ahead, Barbie. Next testifier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is Patricia Spinoza, and she is commenting in support of Resolution 305-12 and Bill 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Mahalo to the Council for the positive efforts that you're taking to protect your constituents from the noise of nighttime drilling from geothermal through this Bill 292. And I wanted to offer a few comments for your consideration regarding this bill. I find it very disturbing that PGV's lawyers dismiss the well-being of neighbors in favor of profits, profits, profits. The trend we are seeing here on our island home of corporate well-being put before the well-being of the islanders is something that we have to say no to over and over again until our voices are clearly heard. And for me, saying no to PGV's nighttime drilling is a case in point where we must stand for our rights for a clean, quiet, and healthy environment. Now, while PGV's lawyers assert they have a permit from the Hawaii County Planning Commission that allows them to drill 24 hours a day until they reach their 60 milliwatts of power outage, this is just not true. In the Geothermal Resource Permit, it states that PGV must comply with not only applicable Hawaii state statutes, but also with local laws, regulations, and ordinances that apply. They don't have a free pass to use and abuse our land and environment. So while we can't undo their past action, their past interpretations, we need to protect ourselves against future encroachments in as strong a way as possible. And I feel that Bill 292 certainly contributes to that. And so we very much appreciate Hawaii County Council for passing this bill. And it is clear that the issued permits show that the action by the council to pass this bill for the well-being of the people is not only valid, but it is essential. Thank you for your consideration on that bill. I also wanted to make a brief comment about 305, which is about simplifying the requirements for installing solar. And this bill, I feel, is a very important step in our effort and in our fight to find sustainable alternatives to geothermal, which is being imposed on us, especially people here in Puna who are a large majority off the grid on solar, but we're having the geothermal and all of the issues that it brings imposed on us. So I urge the council to continue the support of this bill. And one last comment is, sitting here listening to the concerns of the citizens of this island, it really reiterates for me the responsibility and the burden placed on you, the council, to really protect and the well-being of this island and of this paradise that we all live in. So I just want to urge you that whenever something comes before the council, bills like this that say we have to put a stop to the encroachment, the infringement on this way of life that we all love, that you are going to continue, as you are doing, to take a stand and say, no, it is the well-being of the people in the island that is our highest priority. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Barbara, your next testifier in Pahol, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is William Brader, and he is commenting in support of Bill 305, Bill 292, and Resolution 302-12.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for being there. I'm going to put 302 and 305 together. It's a sort of a no-brainer, but we've just put in our solar system, and we now have 7 acres that we're in a small farm that we're putting together. And it's the amount of creativity that's released by being able to not have to be permitted in every way. We had to permit our solar. If that could be dropped, we could have done it ourselves. And we would have done an excellent system. Most people do. We depend on our own solar. So we do a good job. And it releases all kinds of creativity when we can have the sustainable research idea validated by you as the council. So that's what I have to say on those two. I just encourage you to give us the freedom to really be creative on our own land. But the most important thing for me right now is the noise limitations that you've put into place.
with this ordinance 292, and I really hope that you follow through fully on that ordinance. We all know how annoying it is to have a constant repetitive sound, how difficult it is to live with that. And this will at least give us some breathing room at night. So I really urge you to assert the power of the council and make sure that we have some power over these geothermal installations that seem to be coming up. So thank you, council, for your help.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's move on to Hilo. I believe, Nora, you have one more testifier in Hilo, is that correct?
No, so far we have 9 more that had signed up to testify. So
oh.
Yes.
Okay, okay, no, that's fine. Go ahead. Your next testifier, please.
Hilo.
Go ahead, Nora.
From Hilo, our next testifier is Shawna Wolfe, who is speaking in opposition to Communication 880.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please proceed.
My name is Shawna Wolfe. I have lived on Hawaii for 19 years. I wanted to speak against the Puna geothermal venture. Instead of investing more money into such a risky venture, we should be investing into more forms of alternative energy, such as solar. Currently, 20% of our power comes from geothermal sources. It's unwise to put the state's energy source into a structurally unstable lava zone when the possibility of an eruption in the geothermal resource or statewide cable path within any 50-year period is between 60 and 90%. Geothermal emissions contain a cocktail of toxic chemicals that are extremely harmful to humans as well as surrounding animals and plants. Workers and Puna residents have been suffering from a number of respiratory and skin ailments as well as other health problems for years. Many residents have complained against this. 18 civil defense emergencies have been called because of this one existing PGV pipe. Hawaii has enough air quality issues due to bog. Why are we adding more irritating chemicals? Hawaii is an area of constant earthquakes. It's possible for the wall casing to rupture in an earthquake, causing an unrestricted flow of emissions or lava. Spill containment basements and systems could be wrecked by a major quake. Lava flows can be triggered by drilling. Blowouts are also another common possibility. It seems all too easy to contaminate our groundwater or ocean under land. We're being told geothermal is a clean source of renewable energy, while geothermal creates toxic sludge, which is composed of geothermal fluids, oils, and drilling beds containing sulfur compounds, as well as arsenic, other toxins, and toxic heavy metals. Currently, we import 90% of our energy. It makes no sense that Hilo has the highest utility rates in the nation. We shouldn't be lagging the nation in solar installation. It makes no sense that Hawaii Electric Company has limited solar to 15% per circuit, saying that further increases will destabilize the grid, while in Kauai, which isn't served by HECO, some circuits are at 100% solar penetration without any impact on the grid. With Hawaii's abundant sunshine, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions year-long, we should be investing in cleaner, more localized, quieter, less expensive forms of sustainable energy. But while I agree that Hawaii should be working towards less reliance on imported oil, I don't believe the expansion of geothermal energy production is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And I just want to mention that the Communication 880 is actually a presentation in regards to the renegotiation between HELCO and the renewable energy power producers. So it's not a subject about the PGV or for against PGV. But thank you for your testimony. But I just wanted to, in case anyone else is going to speak on 880 regarding that, I wanted to make that clear. Your next testifier, Nora, please.
Our next testifier is Brad Westervelt, representing Hawaii Sustainable Community Alliance, and he's speaking in support of Resolution 302-12.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Brad Westervelt. I am the director with the Hawaii Sustainable Community Alliance. Can't hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Okay. The cry of government should do something has gone on for so long and been acted on by so many that a web of laws and regulations has grown to give little option for creativity. The web formed by lawyers and insurance and government agencies stifle the small businessman and farmer to a point that they can hardly make a move without doing something that can be turned into an official complaint. Now there is a groundswell of interest in agricultural self-sustainability, such as State Act 114, signed in June by the governor, calls to relax building regulations for ag farmers. But the building department representatives from all the counties are siding with the lawyers and insurance industries in playing the public health and safety card, and they're blocking any progress on this act. Last year, Resolution 16711, passed by this very council, called upon our county building department to devise relaxed alternative building code requirements for our ag zone properties. Again, our county building department has stalled any progress on this resolution. Right now, Bill 266 is well-intentioned, and these revisions to ag tourism are long overdue. Today, we are pleased you are on the way towards approving Resolution 302, which calls for ag land use in ways that will foster building healthy communities without jumping through the complex, expensive, and slow special permit process. This is important because land use and farm operations evolve. Master planning is a fine idea that is only that, an idea. If a review of the special permits that have been approved over the years were done, it would be obvious that rarely do these plans work out and become exactly what was planned. Flexibility is needed, and the ideals supported by this resolution provide a safe and reasonable framework for small farm communities to flourish. Please support the groundswell of interest in agricultural self-sustainability. Please support our sustainable living research sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, sir. Let's move on to Pahoa. Go ahead, Barbie. Next testifier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is Paul Kuykendall, and he will be speaking in support of Resolution 302-12 and Bills 305 and 292.
Aloha.
Aloha.
My name is Paul Kuykendall, and I'm a resident of Pahoa. Mahalo for this opportunity to share my testimony. Regarding Resolution 302-12, I support legislation to enact sustainable living research sites. This effort will allow flexibility and creativity for those of us who are working hard to develop sustainable farms. Regarding Bill 305, I support the easing of requirements for solar permits. I am currently in the process of installing an off-grid solar system. We've had to wait many weeks for the permit process and have incurred significant costs for engineers and architects to respond to the permitting process. Simplifying the process will speed our energy independence with a truly clean energy source, the sun. One nice thing about solar panels is they're silent and clean. Regarding Bill 292, I want to begin by thanking members of the Council who voted for this bill on the last hearing. As many of you know, geothermal drilling produces low-frequency noise, which creates stress for anyone near it. Recent studies show that constant stress can lead to anxiety and depression. It's unfair for PGV to subject neighbors to the excruciating noise and stress from drilling day and night just so that they can save time and money, especially when it can go on for as much as 4 months, which is what happened the last round. The nighttime noise interferes with evening time at home, with sleep, and affects children and adults alike. The basic problem is that PGV has been a rich but poor neighbor. Rather than spending money to mitigate the noise, both from drilling and from day-to-day noise from cooling fans and operations, PGV has spent its money on lawyers, claiming that the county has no right to limit their operations, since they already have permits. I ask you to please review the written testimony of my partner, Suzanne Wakeland, which outlines PGV's current permits, which clearly state that PGV must comply with local laws. She also points out that PGV will have to apply for additional permits to drill, and under those permits, they will have to comply with current local laws. As you well know, it is the responsibility of the Council to protect the health and safety of Hawaii County citizens. Mahalo to the Council for making this effort on our behalf. You are the last line of defense from 24/7 drilling. Thank you for this time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Barbara, your next testifier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next testifier is Graham Ellis, and he is speaking in support of Resolution 302-12 and representing Hawaii Sustainable Community Alliance.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, members of the Council. I appreciate being here today to address the Sustainable Living Research Resolution once again. This time, I'm here to give an example of how this will serve the County of Hawaii. We have a remarkable situation here. We have a gentleman who testified before you, Leimana Pelton, who recently won the Sustainable Innovation Challenge Award for the Big Island for his bamboo technology. He has also been the recipient of a county contract for building 6 of these wonderful structures at the transfer stations around the island. And he's in a situation where he wants to further this research and development, but unable to do so under existing laws. We have a wonderful opportunity here on our island to be innovators for not only the state but the whole country in terms of alternative building using bamboo. But we need to change the laws, and this resolution will enable us to go to the state and to inspire other counties to pass similar resolutions, so that at the state level we can change the codes necessary to support innovators like Leimana. He's a good role model for us, and I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's move back to Hilo. Hilo, any more testifiers on it? Hilo?
Yes, Chair Yagon, we do have several.
Okay, very good. Please proceed.
Our next testifier will be Debra Ward, and she's representing the Sierra Club, commenting on Bill number 266, Draft 3.
Thank you. Good morning.
Aloha, my name is Debra Ward. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to share a few observations on my own behalf before I state some of the concerns of Sierra Club. And that is that I've had the luxury in the last few years to retire from university and become a farmer. And I planted many, many years ago, but now I'm actually reaping the rewards and selling my produce, and I'm in full support of farmers doing whatever it is they need to do in order to make a living, and agritourism may well be one of those. But I also have concerns because I live in an agricultural subdivision, and I think these subdivisions are widespread, and because of the way the county has allowed the zoning of these subdivisions, they're not fully served in all the ways that many people in the state think residences are served, and one of them is that they're not paved. I mean, many of these subdivisions are not paved. Hawaiian Acres is an example for Forest, Hawaiian Ocean View. And the burden of the road maintenance is shared by all the owners, not just the person to whom the tourism would benefit. Other places are gated, and the question is, if you're, would an agritourism operation be allowed to override the wishes of the other people in the gated communities, for instance, ranchos, to bring an agricultural tourism operation into that? I think none of those things are really addressed in Bill 266. Another thing is that most ag lots are not on state or county owned roads, and so there are no sidewalks, no paving, no street lights, no maintenance, very little enforcement, and very few services. As a result, you're proposing major and minor agricultural tourism in a place that could put the county at quite a lot of liability, I think, for failure to protect the public. And I think the absence of penalties, mostly the absence of monitoring and the ability to enforce, are really glaringly missing from the bill. At this point, I'll speak now on behalf of Sierra Club, and I wasn't aware that Cory would be able to be here today, so I agreed to come as representing Sierra Club because I'm chair. And I'd like to thank Pete Hoffman for beginning the discussion, and of course all the people in the Agritourism Association for working on this bill. And I'd also really like to thank Brenda Ford for addressing the concerns that were raised in the last couple of public hearings. Draft 3 reflects many, if not most, of the concerns raised by farmers and members of the community, but there are a few things that are still missing. And I think that the provision of legal road access and adequate road and site access for fire, ambulance, and police is still a critical issue. I believe that adequate restrooms and sewer services is not really adequately addressed in this bill. I think it is important, as Sierra Club has stated, that requiring the operator of the tourism business be an owner, an operator, and occupant is really important, because
summarize.
Thank you. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is the monitoring. I think that there needs to be an annual report on the income, both from the agricultural operation and the agritourism aspect of it, and that there needs to be not only monitoring but the ability to enforce. It's very nice that the Agritourism Association is willing to police, but they don't actually police anything, and they can't because there's no enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Your next testifier, Nora in Hilo, go ahead.
Our next testifier is Ronald Fujiyoshi, who is speaking in support of Communication 880, Resolution 302-12, and Bill number 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, council members in Hilo and in Kona. I want to, if I can, make also a comment on Bill 305, if I may. So I'll speak about Bill 292 first, Resolution 302-12 next, Communication 880, and then finally Bill 305. I think, as most of you know, that I'm a lay pastor here in Hilo. I was a missionary in Asia for 20 years, working in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and with the Koreans in Japan before returning to Hilo in 1988. I know very clearly that I cannot assume that most of the people are Christian, but I feel as a member of the Christian community I need to testify about some of the bills that are before us. I was asked to preach at the Ola First Hawaiian Church last Sunday, and the lectionary, which is carried by most of the Protestants, the common lectionary had as its focus scripture the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verses 17 through 31, which is called the rich young ruler. And it's in this case that the rich young ruler comes to Jesus and asks the question, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And then Jesus recites, have you obeyed the commandments, and recites the 10 commandments. And he adds one extra one which says, do not defraud. And I wanted to focus on that, do not defraud, because I think that's a simple rule that all of us need to follow if we care about justice. And sometimes when we're looking at bills such as Bill 292, we get caught up in the legalities of the contract rather than the basic of what it does. And I think the do not defraud is a rule of thumb that we should follow. And I think by logic, we should be protecting the residents who live closest to the PGV plant and are bothered by the noise at night. And I think it's common sense as well as just for us to support the passage of Bill 292, which eliminates the noise from the drilling that keeps people awake in the evening after 7 p.m. up to 7 a.m. in the morning. So I speak very strongly in support of you to continue to pass Bill 292 and help the residents that have been bothered by this noise all this time. Now on Resolution 302-12, I also want to believe that a lot of people really want to be self-sustaining here on the Big Island, first to obtain land to live on, and then to grow more of their own food to live on and live simply. And I think this resolution tries to eliminate many of the restrictions that make it very expensive for them to live this simple lifestyle. And so I think I speak in strong support of Resolution 302-12. Now, on the Communication 880, I know in life there are larger contradictions and there are smaller contradictions. And in this case, I think HELCO, with its power and its expensive electricity rates, are the larger contradiction. And the lesser contradiction is PGV. So any attempt to allow PGV to lower its rates so that all of the public can pay less rates, I think would be in the benefit of the public. So I support this communication, although obviously I am opposed to geothermal in Hawaii, basically on the two bases of one, I support our host Kanaka Maoli people, especially those who believe it's a sacrilege to continue geothermal, and I think we who are from other ethnic groups that have come and migrated to Hawaii need to take a second look and be very serious about the host culture and their beliefs. And secondly, geothermal in Hawaii has never proven that it is safe in terms of health, and so I think I stand in clear opposition to geothermal, but support this communication 880. Finally, on Bill 302, I think the intent of this bill is to make it easier to install solar panels, and so I support. I thank Council Member Yoshimoto for introducing this bill and in support of Bill 305. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I go over to Pahoa, I just want to say, in the audience here at Kona, we do have Mr. Ignacio. We did ask HELCO to come and give a presentation regarding Communication 880. I know he had a previous engagement. I know he was supposed to leave at 10, so if you do have to leave, Mr. Ignacio, we understand that. I know that you have other representatives here as well, so I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you. With that, let's go to Pahoa. Go ahead, Barbara. Your next testifier, please.
Chair, our next testifier is Gina Smith Gibbons, and she's speaking in support of Resolution 302-12 and Bill 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Council Chair and Council members. I appreciate your attention and your patience listening to all this testimony today. I am speaking first in favor of Resolution 302-12. I believe that when this is voted into law, that this is going to be an excellent opportunity for Hawaii County to be pioneers in sustainable living, and will be a model for other counties in our state as well as in other states around the country. I believe that this is particularly an issue here in Puna, where poverty and homelessness rates are so high. This provides a wonderful, affordable opportunity for these people to have safe homes. As one of the other testifiers said, that there's a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety that becoming compliant causes, or the worry of not being in compliance can cause. And already living in poverty or being homeless, there's already so much anxiety. So if we can get people off not really off the street, but out of the jungle maybe, and into affordable homes, safe homes would be really wonderful. As far as myself, I'm a single mom of 6 children, 5 of which are still living at home with me. And I currently live in an unpermitted structure. It's a very safe home, a wonderful home, but unfortunately it just is not totally up to code at the moment. But I rent. It's not my own home. Someday I would like to build my own home. And, you know, as a single mom, it's going to really be important that it can be affordable. I personally would really like it. I would like to be self-sustainable. I'd like to be off-grid. And I'd also like to utilize local materials and labor. you know, here in Hawaii, we live in paradise where it is possible to enjoy indoor-outdoor living. And as Bradley said earlier, you know, we do have an opportunity to be more creative with our building with this resolution. So I encourage you to pass this. I also want to speak on Bill 292 for the drilling. I think the fact that we're even having this conversation is a bit of a shame that we're even allowing this to move forward at all. But as a start, I think definitely it's a no-brainer to pass this bill and to respect the residents that live around this plant. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. Barbara, your next testifier in Pahoa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is Leslie Weingate. She will be speaking in support.
Thank you.
In support of resolutions 302-12 and 305-12 and bills 305 and 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Aloha, and thank you for hearing our concerns. I really resonated with what a woman said earlier about it's a shame to see corporations' profits put ahead of community needs. So I want to say mahalo to the County Council for putting this community's needs ahead of the desires for corporation profits. Yeah, I'm going to address 4 bills. So first is 302-12. And I'm thrilled to see the government talking about this and about sustainability. I'm also a single mom and about to start building my home, and having the process be as stress-free and affordable as possible makes a huge difference in me and my child's life. So I hope that you will support Bill 302-12. I want to ask you on that bill to please take out the 15-acre limit altogether, or if you don't feel like that's possible, could you at least expand it to 25 acres instead of 15 acres? Mahalo nui for your help on that. The next I want to address is 305-12. I haven't heard about this before. I just saw it on the agenda. I guess there's going to be a donation to the narcotics division. I just want to ask that whatever narcotics organization gets this donation, could they please focus on busting meth labs and cocaine dealers and leave marijuana growers alone, because cannabis has been used as a medicine for thousands of years, and I think right now when more people have cancer and other diseases more than ever before, we need as many medicines available to us as possible. So please focus on busting the meth labs. That's the real problem. The next one I want to address is 305, and I support this bill that will ease the requirements for solar permits. Mahalo once again for helping us to have less stress while building sustainable systems. And the last I want to address is 292. Mahalo for passing this last time. That was really encouraging. And please amend the bill to make PGV adhere to these hours of silence when they're within 5 miles of a residence and not just within 1 mile. Because I know I can pick up low vibration frequencies over many miles. And I know many other creatures can too. And from my understanding, nationwide, the standard is for a geothermal operation to be at least 10 miles away from where anybody lives. So please pass this bill, and in the process, please make it so that they can't drill during the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. when they're within 5 miles of the residence. Thank you so much for all your help. Aloha.
Aloha, thank you very much for your testimony. Let's move back to Hilo. Go ahead, Nora. Your next testifier, please.
Our next testifier is Tim Reese, and he had signed up for several items on the agenda.
Good morning,
okay,
Mr.
go
Chairman.
ahead, Mr. Reese.
Thank you, sir.
Aloha.
Communication 880, I'll start on. Well, I'm, like a lot of folks here, I'd imagine, in the broader community, very anxious to hear this presentation by HELCO on efforts to renegotiate purchase power agreements with independent renewable energy power producers. I want to commend them for coming forward. I like the fact that they've been putting quite a few ads in the paper kind of explaining the situation. But in light of that also, let's not forget that there is also great cost in the ever-expanding grid and the ever more necessary maintenance costs, which are huge. So if at all they've got any kind of studies or reports on this issue, I would hope that they might discuss the situation. If you factor in those continual grid expansion and maintenance costs, at what point do independent residential systems really make sense for everyone? Now I understand, you know, having power plants near big industrial areas tends to make a bit of sense, you know, at least at this time. But to me, I see nothing but great benefit to the entire population if everybody can get off that darn grid. And then, of course, you get into the other question of what alternative forms of non-fuel oil production, energy production do you go to? And I don't think everybody could have geothermal in their backyard even if it was the greatest technology. It's just not cost effective. And it's interesting that solar is getting more and more cost effective. I was one of the biggest people kind of against solar and saying, hey, it's really just so subsidized that you're not seeing the real costs of it. But we are moving more and more towards solar, feasible, independent residential energy production by solar for everybody. Right now, it's only folks that can afford it or can take advantage of the grants and subsidies. That is changing. I'm done with that one. Moving on to Resolution 302. Again, I've heard great testimony all day today on all these issues on your agenda. And the testifier just before me was excellent. I, too, am concerned about 15 acres. When I look at this, my first thought was, why 15 acres? And then I thought about it, and I've asked a couple people, and it sounds like it's the same reason that the council usually batters subdivision, what you call them, requesters on, saying they're trying to dodge the state law where 15 acres and above triggers land use commission decision on it, you know. So I don't know if that's the case, but I have a 7-acre parcel or a 20-acre parcel that I'm redeveloping and getting back into right now. This premise of a sustainable living research site, because of the geography out there and the topography, the 20-acre parcel would be far more amenable to one of these sites. So, but I wouldn't be allowed to do it under this. Another problem I do have, I'm totally in support of this idea, by the way, in the concept, and pushing Resolution 302 to the state. One of the problems I do have is when I read the actual reso itself, it's hard for me to understand if what you were really trying to do was asking the state to allow a sustainable research living site zoning type of zoning, or are you really asking the state to designate the sites as the reso states? When you read the whereas on the last page, it gives a definition where it sounds like you're saying people can apply for it, which to me would mean it's an allowable zoning type of situation. But in the be it resolved, it says that you're asking the state ledge to enact legislation to establish sustainable living research sites on parcels less than 15 acres that are designated agricultural under state law in Hawaii. So I don't think that the state is anywhere near qualified to actually make those designations on our island. I think that's more of a home rule, grassroots type of area, a concern where we could, the communities could designate these areas, possibly the CDPs, steering committees, or just citizen groups working together, farm groups. So those are my problems with the reso as it's written. I see a little bit of confusion there. And if I were state legislature, I might even be confused with what you're asking them to do. Resolution 305. Okay, this is a bit scary, and I'm glad the previous testifier or someone else testifying mentioned it. Where I lived in California, I needed to know, and I did know, quite a few people that were working with the government. And they were the biggest rats in the community, and they were protected because they were accepting federal funds, federal and state funds. Two things scare me about this. Who is Western States Information Network? I have no idea who they are. Are they a private organization that's trying to get a contract with the county of Hawaii somewhere, selling their services to the county? Or, and they're doing this more or less as a goodwill grant, $4,500 to the Hawaii County Police Department to assist with an ongoing joint state and federal narcotics investigation. It's going to be used for equipment, rental vehicles used for covert operations, and buys / surveillance expenditures. Now here's the problem I have. A lot of time, these guys are working with informants and they protect the heck out of them. Like I said, they can be the biggest rats in this community. They can be poisoning our young children with filth. And I speak particularly towards meth and cocaine. I am completely anti-meth. I mean, I want all meth dealers prosecuted to the fullest. You know, that stuff has no place in Hawaii. Unfortunately, it got here and infected our young children. Personally, I had a brother who just completely lost it on methamphetamine. I've seen how a drug can push down his love for his own daughter, and he chose the drug over her. Now they've rebuilt their relationship, but the break is always there. She will always be affected by what happened to her personally. And my brother, excuse me, when I speak with him about this, he thinks he's Father of the Year. And you wouldn't believe the twisted mindset that goes on some of the people that have been on methamphetamine for a while. And thankfully he is off it now, but that's always a tenuous situation. Beware what you're doing here. It's only $4,500, but watch out, because when you accept outside grants, it's like big money in the politics. Those people do get a say in what happens. They do end up wagging the tail. You're steering the dog by wagging its tail. We should be controlling what we do. We should be aggressively attacking methamphetamine, cocaine distributors. And I was not a saint in my earlier life, so I'm speaking from some past experience, even though it might sound hypocritical to people who knew me in my younger days. Resolution 310, authorizing acceptance of the, I just want to thank the DLNR for actually getting these skeet traps, the self-loading skeet traps. They fly the clay pigeons, right? And you shoot at them with the shotguns, basically. I'm in favor of that. I think people should be gun smart, gun safety, you know, really know what you're doing. I've had people who are extremely experienced who win tournaments on target shooting and stuff, and they say even down here at the county facility, you know, below the Hilo dump, they're ashamed sometimes to see what people they went to school with, how they handle their firearms and everything. Very unsafe, very unskilled, and the more stuff we have that promotes gun safety, the better. It's also pretty good recreation, you know, and I'm in favor of that, people knowing how to use firearms. Bill 308, I'm in favor of the sidewalks up there. Thank you, Mr. Ikeda, improving the safety in that area, and I hope you get supported on this. Bill 266, Draft 3. You know, I wasn't even going to come today, and I'm really happy that I did, because everybody has made good points on this. Jim King's points were very good, many of the other folks. My main situation here from the beginning, I told you that this is a difficult thing to legislate. I'm very concerned that this may go from what I considered a ridiculously underregulated bill to a ridiculously overregulated bill. And here's the hazard. Small farmers do need anything you can do to create an annual, a year-long trickle income. It's great if it doesn't cause problems to the greater community. It can be done properly. This bill is nowhere near ready yet. And again, it's a difficult thing to legislate where you don't shut out people that should be included, where you don't end up just shutting off all ag tourism to nothing but the rich farmers who really have the properties right along the highways. You know, that's not the intent of this. It's supposed to be to help all farmers out. It is very important. I think this bill should be remitted back to the planning commissions. I also support, well, I'll speak on 74519 in a second. Yeah, it was ridiculously underregulated. The vehicle trips allowed on minor ag tourism that had no plan review was silly. It was ridiculous. It could be entirely detrimental to the whole community. And the group that spoke before, that's kind of the industry on this, they don't represent me or my neighbors. Man, we're farmers. We get it. We want to be able to survive. All this talk about sustainability, let me tell you something. The Big Island is in big danger of having two classes here. People that are struggling to pay their meals every day and buy, who wish to farm and are making an honest effort at it. And then rich folks that come in and buy the property and they're not farmers. They may plant their land with trees and orchards and what have you, and they may actually go out there and work the land, but let them come forward and tell you they're not putting in, they're not subsidizing their endeavors through pensions and past investments and everything, you know. There's a big difference between a rich cat that has a lot of money and you can keep dumping it at the farm and you like it, it's kind of like the gentleman farm, the worst case of that, and people that are truly trying to produce food for this island. So this is an issue that has to be studied much further. It doesn't belong at the county council at this point. You're hearing so many vital issues brought forward, the noise, the traffic, the dust. what things are covered under nuisance laws, what things need to be hammered out in this actual bill. You don't want to over-regulate, and you don't want to kill the good intention of it. I strongly suggest you remit this back to the planning commissions. We get some citizens advisory groups going on this. It seems like the first bill was driven by the actual agritourism industry group, and I think there was not enough participation in spite of what they represented to you, well, of the general public. And it is a general public issue. It's not just farmers and ranchers. Communication 745.19. I do like, first I thought it was terrible. I read through this. This is communication that has the amendments presented to the agritourism bill. At first when I read it, I thought it was terrible. I said, wow, they're way over-regulating again. Here it goes. Back and forth, knee-jerk reactions, you know. But the truth is, I read through it more carefully this morning, and I think on basis, it's a very good set of amendments. However, from the beginning, I thought, why does this thing have to be, with all the various concerns about agritourism, why does it have to be a minor and a major only breakpoint on when you have plan review, plan approval? The numbers on the minor were way too high for me for vehicle trips. I could see that being nothing but problematic. I see that communication 745.19 reduces those number of vehicle trips to, I think, about 30 visitors per day. I think that's more appropriate, but then they took away. Now you have to have plan approval for that, except for really minor things like, you know, a fruit stand or something on your property or on a neighboring site. So I would say if I'm an even venture to get into any kind of ag tourism and try to create a little more trickle income through the year to help me farm, legitimate farming, of course I want to brand it and sell t-shirts. That's what the people want if they even come down to the property. Now, I'm not talking about cheesy trinkets and all that. I'm just saying these are things that need to be opened up a little bit more. You need to look at it from a business person's state of mind and say, does it even make sense to try it? And I also am in favor of the minor ag tourism. Maybe there should be a medium level, you know, maybe it shouldn't just be minor and major, of those folks being able to try it out without plan approval. Because realistically, that's the nature of it. I know so many farmers and ag producers that you try things, you see what works, you see what hits, you see how your neighbors are about it, you speak to them, you say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, what do you think? You know, is it okay with you guys? So let's get the legitimate regs in there by sending this entire package back to the community. I think this council is going to make a mistake if you pass any of this stuff today forward without remitting it back. And I didn't sign up for Bill 305, Mr. Chairman, but I did want to just touch on that briefly. I'm not quite sure what it was. When I read it, I heard people talking about saying you were reducing the need for the what was it, the engineering or the plan approval, not plan approval, the specifications. When I read it, I didn't see that, so I didn't really understand what was going on past deliberations on this bill. But in general, yeah, I'm in favor of reducing the solar, making it easier for people to install solar. Now let me give you a little background. Ultimately, you're talking about the attachment points on top of the roofs. Ultimately, this goes back to a problem in the state building code that this county rectified by taking us out of that windborne debris region. To bring it home, Gary Chalk, as one of the amendments suggested as a private individual, even though he sits on the State Building Code Council, he is looking into this whole thing about the solar roofs. He's solar panels on the roofs, the attachments. He's completely overreacting, but that's my opinion. He's a guy with the clout. He's the one stirring up a lot of this hornet's nest on it. And then Warren Lee goes and follows suit. He keeps talking public health, safety, and welfare. That's ridiculous in this instance, you know? So a lot of this stuff is coming from that darn designation of a windborne debris region. It comes from the new stuff in the International Building Code. The fact that we were singled out as the only state where every piece of land is called a windborne debris region is not scientifically supportable. Mr. Chalk has his basis on it. I'm not going to say trust me or believe me, but dig into it yourselves again. You will see that it is not scientifically supportable for our state. The county did the right thing taking us out of that. I hope you do the right thing by also making sure that people can affordably install solar panels, and don't worry so much. When Warren comes in here and starts talking about the lift loads as if the panels are equivalent to an airplane wing, they are not. Otherwise, airplanes would have a rectangular box profile on them. So, you know, the math these guys are throwing out here gets a little silly sometimes. And I'm more in line with Mr. Olsen. When was the last time you read about a roof collapsing from solar panels or from solar panels blowing off and harming neighboring property? Let's get sensible and get the cost down on these things, promote our community. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you for your testimony. Nora, your next testifier, Hilo, please.
Our next testifier is Patsy Ivy, who will be commenting on Bill 292.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, and what a testimony that was. Okay, now to continue with that, my name is Patsy Ivy, and thank you so much for having me. And I'm commenting on Bill 292. I live a mile, within maybe a fourth of a mile from geothermal. And I was told I'm talking about an emergency presently with geothermal right now. If ever there was going to be an emergency at the Puna geothermal plant, it would be now. I have been told by an inside source that the geothermal plant is presently understaffed. They have laid off, to save money, 40 employees. All the employees that work through employment agencies such as Altras have been laid off now for 3 weeks, which is a total of 40 employees. Presently, as we speak, the geothermal plant, the Puna geothermal plant, would not pass OSHA standards, which stands for the federal government standards. I was told that there is only one man at the panel at night. When he goes out to make his rounds, nobody is watching the panel. I was also told that usually there are 2 people that go out to check the valves. One observes for emergency and the other one to fix the valve. Now, nobody's watching. Okay? I want to comment on, also, there's now only, geothermal is presently only putting out 23 megawatts. The event happened during vent cleaning, which is when they clean the vents, they put cold water down the vent, and when the vent is cool, they can go work on the valves. Then they proceed to stop pouring the cold water, and the vent continues to make electricity. Well, this last vent cleaning, it never recovered, and they believe that there's some shift in lava there. So presently only 23 megawatts. You know, I want to know if this is true. I want to know if the geothermal plant is running on a skeleton crew right now. I'm also saying no to nighttime drilling. Nighttime drilling for 4 months was like bulldozers going under your bed all night with drilling and you're trying to sleep. And I have laser staphylectomies. I have titanium staples down my head that probably could be because somehow I'm very sensitive what this woman's talking about. Some undercurrent neural sensory damage that I have. Never can surf again or swim, and I had my 3rd surgery that I can't even get my head wet anymore. And so he said inside source told me the reason why the drilling wasn't as good is they spent a lot of money on the last drilling. They were like surgeons, and they tried to save money. And I was told that that there's absolutely no megawatts from the last drilling, and they lost $50 million. And I was also standing at the Rotary meeting at the Akibono, and I saw HELCO profess to all of us that they're so happy with 30 megawatts now coming from geothermal. So I also want to comment on this. It isn't wise to allow geothermal plants to continue behind fenced areas where toxic, offensive chemicals, sound waves, and earthquakes are so lethal to all of us.
Please summarize, please.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. We're going to go back to Pahoa for 2 more testifiers, and we'll come back here to Kona. We do have 1 more testifier here. Barbara, go ahead, your next testifier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next testifier is Robert Patricki. He is speaking in support of Resolution 302-12 and Bills 305, 307, and 292.
Aloha, council members. I'm actually in opposition to Bill 302. I'm against borrowing it. Oh no, 302 I'm in favor of. It's 307-2 that I'm opposed to. I don't think we should be floating any more bonds, borrowing any more money. There's municipalities all across the U.S. that are in trouble right now because of the debt loads, and if you look at what we pay for gas and food, the staples, the things that we need, that relates to our real economic condition and the fact that the dollar is actually losing value. And the federal policy now is this quantitative easing where they're just going to continue to print money out of thin air and it's going to continue to devalue the dollar. So I don't believe there's any reason to think that the economy is going to get better. I think we should be looking at that the economy is probably going to get worse. At least we should be preparing for that, and it's not a good time to continue to borrow money. We should get our house in order. You got places like Stockton, Orange County, Vallejo, and many, many other places that have gone bankrupt. So, you know, I think we better live within our means and quit borrowing money. So that's for that one. I am going to support Bill 302, Sustainable Living. I think this is, you know, the cost of an affordable home in Hawaii, $240,000. That's really not affordable for most of the people, or for many of us here in Hawaii. And, you know, a family should not have to give the majority of their income for 30 years to have a house. That's kind of a new phenomenon that, you know, you know, throughout history we haven't had to, you know, work our whole life and give everything just to have a house. We just go out and build a house, and because of all this regulation. Now government has stepped in, and they keep regulating this and regulating that, and now it's gotten to the point where we basically are indentured to banks. And a lot of the money from our economy now goes to those banks and leaves the state, and there's less money in our pockets. You have less building permits because, you know, so it shrinks your tax base. So I support this alternate building code and looking for ways to bring the cost down. And the same goes for Bill 305. We need to bring the cost of installing solar systems down. You know, we have the highest electric rates in the United States. I'm on solar, have been for a long time. I can tell you from personal experience, it's a lot cheaper than HELCO. And so, you know, we have a model right now in Puna. There's thousands and thousands of people that live on solar power. And instead of doing these other things, why don't we come and look at how are they doing that and help them? You know, they're not getting any help from the county. Geothermal, as an example, gets grants, they get loan guarantees. There's all these programs to help geothermal, but the people that are actually doing what we're supposed to want to do, which is live sustainably and get off fossil fuels, there's no program to help them. So please pass Bill 305. It's just really the beginning of what needs to be done. If we truly want to get off of oil, we're off it. I'm off it. Thousands of us are off oil. Come out and talk to us and let us show you how to do it. Okay, so Bill 292. I really want to thank the council for finally taking up this noise issue after all these years. PGV is required in their contract to use BACT, and they have never complied with BACT in drilling. That's what we saw with the blowouts and the noise. We had Mike Kuakini testify before this council that they can make that drilling rig quieter. Well, if they can make that drilling rig quieter, that's BACT. They're required to use BACT in their permits, so why aren't their permits being enforced? I don't understand that. You know, it's always that the interest of these geothermal companies are put ahead of the interest of the community. We haven't got the monitoring program is terrible. It doesn't work. I can smell it. I've reported it in the community, and they're telling us that the monitors are reading 0. That's because the monitoring program doesn't work. That we haven't had a good health study. Now we're fighting over how we're going to do a health study after 30 years. We've taken $6 million of this money to use to pave roads, to use for the dump and buses and all of these other things out of the fund, but we don't have a good monitoring program and we don't have a good health study. That's unforgivable for me at this point. You know, it goes back to HGPA as an example. I mean, the whole history of geothermal has been that the community has been thrown under the bus. Let's look at HGPA. They dumped millions and millions and millions of gallons on the ground. They say that what they're re-injecting now is because it's toxic. Everybody now admits that what's coming up is toxic. But so what about those millions of gallons that were dumped in the unlined ponds for 8 years and all the stuff that was vented into this community? Well, you say that's in the past. Okay, it's in the past, but you know what? They never cleaned that site up. They just bulldozed. That stuff's still there. They never tested it. They never cleaned it up. And, you know, so this whole history of geothermal has thrown this community under the bus from day one. It's really time that, you know, you start putting the community first. please pass Bill 292. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your next testifier in Pahoa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next testifier is Dianne Brocatto Thomas, and she's speaking in support of Bill 292, and also in support of Bill 3. I'm sorry, that would be Resolution 302-12. Sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Councilman and Fulton. I'm sorry. I didn't sleep well last night. There was noise. Okay, let me start with 292. I mean, with 302.12. 302.12. I just want to go on record as saying that I am in support of sustainable living. Having lived off grid and off power, and having had gardens, raising our own animals for feed, it's a viable alternative, and I think that everyone should have a right to do that, and it should be made easier for people to have affordable housing and sustain their lifestyle themselves. With regard to 292, I'm very sorry.
Now you're moving off camera.
Oh, am I moving off camera? I thought I was moving toward camera. Okay. Everyone has stresses in their lives, and I'm sorry that I recently lost my mom, so I'm a little stressed. But I want to be sure and be here to support my community. Living within 1 mile of the geothermal plant, having experienced the drilling 24/7 during a time when I was a leader for a national organization for my profession. I was the president of the American Academy of Dental Hygiene. I had 18 committees that I was overseeing, and staying focused when you're doing something like that is difficult enough without adding a lack of sleep because of the noise during the night. The drilling is just unbearable, and I think that Patsy really described it well. I had to laugh, but we all did. We all laughed, but it's really true. It's nerve-wracking, and it does play a toll on your health. So I would like to encourage the council to please pass 292, and know that it's not just the drilling noise. There are other noises, and I called the day after they stopped drilling, the night after, and complained about noise. I called again during the past week because the noise from the fan, the cooling fan alone, are loud. They're set up high. There's no barriers, and even though there was talk so many years ago of building sound barriers, or putting up berms to block the noise of just general operations. That was never done. And living on a hill as I do, and then having the fans set up high, the noise is always there 24/7, and that's bad enough without adding the drilling. So thank you for putting this bill forward. And please pass it. I really would appreciate that for not just myself, but for my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Let's come here to Kona, please. Our next testifier is Sevyn Galombus. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly.
Sevyn.
To speak on Bill 292. For the record, say your name.
Sevyn Galombus.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and thank you, Council. I would like to speak to you about 292, and Dianne, hey, thank you. I also live within a mile of the geothermal plant and went through the 24/7 drilling that was only supposed to last, I believe, was it 60 days, and continued well over 90 days. I've testified before about just how loud that was. Like a ram hoe going, actually 2 ram hoes going on Blue Rock 24/7, and the vibration and the noise. But I wanted to thank the council because I saw that with the first vote, only 2 weren't on board, and with the last vote that you had, only 1 was not on board. So I guess I really want to speak to that one person who is still kind of on the fence about this noise ordinance. And my question to you is, and I really want you to ask this to your heart, do I deserve a restful sleep all night? Now, I know a lot of you drive back and forth across the island. I do too. I work on the west side, live on the east side. And to try to make that drive and try to be effective in the work that you do, you need to have a good night's rest, yeah? Why is it then that you would vote against your people, the citizens of the county of Hawaii, who voted you into place? Why would you not represent your people? Why would you choose to represent a corporate power, an entity that is pretty questionable, really? Do they really need to be drilling 24/7? I mean, is this something that really has to happen? Or is this just about their profit margin? So ask yourself, do I deserve to sleep all night? Do I deserve a restful sleep? Now, I have a wife who doesn't sleep well. Believe me, it's not easy when she doesn't sleep. It's not easy when I don't sleep. But I think, you know, we deserve this. This comes under your pledge to protect the people of the county of Hawaii. Health and safety. Isn't that what you guys signed on for? To represent us, to protect us? So I encourage you one lone person who has not gotten on board with this vote, please represent the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to check with both Pahoa and Hilo as far as the amount of testifiers you have left. Barbara in Pahoa?
Thank
How
you,
many more
Mr. Chair. We have
testifiers do you have?
2 more testifiers.
Okay. How about in Hilo? How many testifiers, Nora?
Chair Yagan, we have 5 more testifiers.
Okay, very good. With that said, it's 10 to 11. So what we're going to do is take a 10-minute recess, and we'll come back at 11 o'clock. Thank you. We're now in recess. Thank you.
That was just for you.
Whoa, sorry. God.
It wasn't running.
Did you ever check out